Morning prayer is not simply a habit reserved for the deeply religious. It is a divine invitation extended to every human heart at the very start of the day. Before the noise of the world grows loud, before responsibilities demand attention, before worries attempt to take control of the mind, God offers a sacred moment of connection. This moment, often quiet and unseen, becomes a powerful turning point. It is in this early surrender that God's protection, guidance, and peace are invited into a day that has not yet unfolded its battles. Every day carries unseen challenges. Some will be small and manageable, others heavy and overwhelming. No one knows what awaits them when they rise in the morning, yet prayer places the unknown future into the hands of a known and faithful God. It declares trust before outcomes are revealed. It says, "Lord, go before me today. Guard me where I cannot see. Lead me where I do not understand." Such prayer is not weakness, it is wisdom. Protection begins first within the heart. Many dangers do not arrive with warning signs. They come disguised as harmless thoughts, subtle temptations, or emotional reactions. A careless word, an impulsive decision, a moment of anger can cause more damage than an obvious threat. Morning prayer creates a spiritual awareness that sharpens discernment. It aligns the heart with truth before deception has a chance to take root. When a person prays in the morning, they are not asking God to follow their plans, they are asking to be guided by His will. Guidance from God is not always loud or dramatic. Often it comes as a quiet conviction, a pause before speaking, a redirection of desire. Prayer trains the soul to recognize these gentle nudges. Without prayer, people rush ahead and ask God to bless their choices afterward. With prayer, they allow God to shape their steps from the beginning. Life's battles rarely announce themselves. They emerge in conversations, decisions, delays, disappointments, and unexpected changes. A prayed-up heart is not free from hardship, but it is prepared for it. Morning prayer does not remove the storm, it anchors the soul within it. The peace that comes from prayer is not dependent on circumstances. It flows from confidence in God's presence. Peace is one of the greatest gifts prayer brings into the day. Not the absence of trouble, but the presence of calm in the midst of it. Anxiety thrives when the mind tries to control what it cannot manage. Prayer releases that burden. It hands control back to God, where it belongs. When peace rules the heart, fear loses its authority. Many people search for peace in productivity, success, or control. Yet peace cannot be manufactured. It must be received. Morning prayer opens the door to that gift. It reminds the soul that God is already at work before the day begins. Nothing that happens will surprise Him. Nothing will overpower His purpose. Guidance from God protects a person from unnecessary pain. Some paths look promising but lead to regret. Some opportunities seem attractive but carry hidden costs. Prayer invites God's wisdom into these moments. It does not guarantee an easy path, but it ensures a right one. A guided life may still encounter difficulty, but it avoids destruction. When prayer becomes the foundation of the day, decisions are no longer rushed. Words are chosen with care. Reactions are tempered by grace. Even in pressure-filled moments, the Spirit remembers who is in control. This awareness does not come naturally. It is cultivated through consistent communion with God. Morning prayer also strengthens trust. Trust is not built in moments of crisis. It is formed in daily surrender. When a person begins each day acknowledging their dependence on God, they grow confident in His faithfulness. Over time, prayer reshapes how they view challenges. What once caused panic now invites prayer. What once felt overwhelming now becomes an opportunity to rely on God. Protection from God is not limited to physical safety. It extends to emotional resilience, mental clarity, and spiritual stability. A prayed, for mind is guarded against despair. A prayed, for heart is protected from bitterness. A prayed, for spirit remains steady when circumstances shake. Life often demands more than human strength can supply. There are days when energy runs low, patience wears thin, and hope feels distant. Morning prayer draws strength from a source beyond the self. It reminds the weary soul that God's power is made perfect in weakness. This strength does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it shows up as quiet endurance, steady faith, or the ability to keep going when giving up would be easier. Prayer also prepares a person to love well. Many daily battles occur in relationships. Misunderstandings, conflicts, and unmet expectations test patience and compassion. Morning prayer softens the heart before friction arises. It allows God to shape responses with humility and grace. A prayed for heart reflects God's love even under pressure. Peace gained through prayer is not fragile. It does not disappear at the first sign of trouble. It stands firm because it is rooted in truth, not circumstances. This peace allows a person to move through the day with confidence, knowing that God's presence surrounds them. Guidance through prayer also provides clarity in confusion. Life often presents crossroads where the right choice is not obvious. Prayer does not always provide immediate answers, but it keeps the heart open to direction. Over time, God reveals the next step, not always the entire path, but enough to walk forward in faith. Morning prayer shifts focus from self to God. It reminds the soul that life is not meant to be carried alone. This shift brings freedom. Burdens feel lighter when shared with God. Worries lose their grip when placed in His hands. Protection through prayer also includes protection from pride. Success can be as dangerous as failure if it leads to self-reliance. Morning prayer keeps the heart humble. It acknowledges that every ability, opportunity, and achievement is a gift from God. This humility invites continued grace. As prayer becomes a daily rhythm, life begins to change, not always outwardly but inwardly. Reactions become calmer, decisions become wiser, faith becomes stronger. This transformation is not sudden, it is gradual and lasting. It is the quiet work of God shaping a life surrendered to Him. Morning prayer does not require perfect words. God listens to sincere hearts, not polished speeches. A simple prayer offered in faith carries great power. What matters is consistency, not eloquence. God honors those who seek Him faithfully. Each day presents a choice: face life alone or invite God into every moment. Morning prayer is that invitation. It sets the tone for the day. It declares that no battle will be faced without God's presence. When prayer becomes the starting point, fear loses its dominance, faith rises, hope renews. Even when the day brings challenges, the heart remains anchored. God's protection surrounds, His guidance directs, His peace sustains. The world may remain uncertain, but the prayed for heart stands secure, and that is the strength found in beginning every day with God before the battles begin. True life change begins not with human strength, determination, or self-discipline alone, but with daily surrender to God. The world tells us that if we try harder, push longer, and believe more strongly in ourselves, we can fix what is broken inside us. Yet, generation after generation has discovered that human strength has limits. We can make promises we cannot keep, set goals we cannot maintain, and fight battles we were never meant to fight alone. Real change, the kind that reaches the heart, reshapes the soul, and redirects the course of a life, begins when a person kneels in humility and says, "Lord, I cannot do this on my own. I need you." Daily surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the honest recognition that life is bigger than our understanding and heavier than our ability to carry. Every day brings decisions that shape our future, temptations that test our character, and pressures that strain our spirit. When we rely only on ourselves, we quickly become exhausted, frustrated, and discouraged. But when we surrender daily to God, we exchange our weakness for His strength, our confusion for His guidance, and our fear for His peace. Many people want life change without surrender. They want freedom without obedience, peace without trust, and transformation without commitment. But God does not force His will on a resisting heart. He waits patiently for an open one. Surrender is the doorway through which God's power enters a human life. Until that door is opened, His work is limited not by His ability, but by our resistance. Daily surrender begins in the quiet moments, often unseen by anyone else. It happens when a person wakes up and chooses prayer before panic, faith before fear, and trust before control. It is the simple but profound act of placing the day into God's hands and saying, "Lead me today, guard me today, change me today." Those words may seem small, but they invite the power of heaven into the ordinary moments of life. Human strength is unreliable. It fluctuates with emotions, circumstances, and health. One day we feel confident, the next day overwhelmed. One moment we believe we can conquer anything, and the next we are brought to our knees by a single phone call or unexpected loss. God's strength, however, does not rise and fall. It is constant, unchanging, and sufficient for every situation. When we surrender daily, we stop leaning on what shifts and start trusting in what stands firm. Surrender is not giving up on life. It is giving life over to the one who created it. It is trusting that God sees what we cannot see, knows what we do not know, and understands what we cannot understand. Many struggles persist not because God is silent, but because we are still trying to control outcomes that belong to Him. Daily surrender releases us from the burden of control and places our lives in safer hands. True life change does not happen in dramatic moments alone. It happens gradually, quietly, and consistently. It happens when a person chooses obedience over impulse, prayer over reaction, and humility over pride, day after day. These small acts of surrender compound over time, reshaping character and redirecting destiny. What feels insignificant today may become the foundation of transformation tomorrow. There is a peace that comes with surrender that cannot be manufactured by human effort. It is the peace of knowing that even when you do not have answers, God does. Even when the road ahead is unclear, God is already there. Surrender teaches the heart to rest, not in circumstances, but in God's faithfulness. That rest becomes the soil in which change grows. Many people struggle because they try to surrender once and expect a lifetime of results. But surrender is not a one-time decision. It is a daily posture. Each day brings new challenges, and each challenge invites a fresh choice. Will I rely on myself, or will I trust God? Daily surrender keeps the heart soft, the spirit sensitive, and the mind aligned with truth. Human strength often leads to pride. When things go well, we take credit. When things fall apart, we feel crushed. Surrender keeps us grounded. It reminds us that every good thing comes from God, and every victory is sustained by His grace. This humility does not diminish us, it frees us. It allows us to live without the pressure of proving ourselves and instead focus on pleasing God. Life change also requires patience, something human strength often lacks. We want immediate results and quick fixes. God works differently. He shapes lives the way a potter shapes clay, slowly, intentionally, and with care. Daily surrender keeps us on the wheel, allowing God to mold us even when the process feels uncomfortable. The pain we resist may be the very thing God is using to refine us. Surrender does not mean the absence of struggle. Even surrendered lives face trials, losses, and disappointments. The difference is not in what they face, but in how they face it. When surrendered, hardship becomes a place of growth instead of despair. Pain becomes a teacher rather than a destroyer. God uses what threatens to break us to build something stronger within us. One of the greatest lies is that strong people do not need help. In truth, The strongest people are those who know when to lean on God. Daily surrender is an act of courage. It takes courage to admit need, to release control, and to trust when answers are delayed. But that courage is always rewarded with deeper faith and stronger character. Daily surrender also transforms relationships. When we stop trying to control people and outcomes, we become more patient, compassionate, and forgiving. We begin to see others not as obstacles or tools, but as souls loved by God. Pride gives way to grace, and conflict gives way to understanding. Life change within always produces fruit outwardly. There will be days when surrender feels easy and days when it feels impossible. On difficult days, surrender may be nothing more than whispering a prayer through tears. God honors that prayer just as much as confident declarations of faith. He is not impressed by eloquence, he responds to honesty. A surrendered heart does not hide weakness, it brings it to God. Human strength often fails at the point of exhaustion. God's strength is made perfect there. When you reach the end of yourself, you have not reached the end of hope. You have reached the beginning of dependence. That is where miracles often begin, not the miracles that impress crowds, but the miracles that heal hearts, restore faith, and renew purpose. Daily surrender protects us from despair when things do not go as planned. It teaches us that our worth is not defined by success, our identity is not determined by failure, and our future is not limited by the present. God is always at work, even when progress feels slow or invisible. Life change rooted in surrender lasts. Changes built on human effort alone often collapse under pressure, but changes formed through daily reliance on God are sustained by His power. They endure through trials, withstand temptation, and grow stronger over time. This is the difference between temporary improvement and lasting transformation. Surrender also reshapes priorities. What once seemed urgent loses its grip, and what truly matters becomes clear. Time with God, integrity, compassion, and obedience take precedence over image, approval, and control. Life begins to align with purpose rather than pressure. When we surrender daily, we give God permission to interrupt our plans. Sometimes those interruptions feel inconvenient, but they are often divine redirections. God may close doors we desperately wanted open or lead us down paths we never considered. In hindsight, surrendered hearts often see that those redirections were acts of mercy. True life change begins when surrender becomes a habit rather than an emergency response. When prayer is not the last resort but the first response, the heart remains anchored even in unstable times. Faith becomes steady not because life is easy, but because trust is deep. There is freedom in knowing that you do not have to carry tomorrow today. Daily surrender keeps us present, trusting God one step at a time. It reminds us that grace is given daily, strength is renewed daily, and guidance is available daily. We are not meant to live years ahead. We are meant to walk faithfully today. As surrender becomes a way of life, fear loses its authority. Fear thrives on control and uncertainty. Surrender places both in God's hands. Confidence grows, not confidence in ourselves, but confidence in God's faithfulness. That confidence brings peace even when circumstances remain unchanged. Life change through surrender also brings joy, not the shallow joy based on comfort, but deep joy rooted in trust. Even in hardship, surrendered hearts find reasons to hope, gratitude to express, and purpose to pursue. Joy becomes a strength that sustains the soul. Daily surrender ultimately leads to intimacy with God. When we stop striving to impress Him and start trusting Him, our relationship deepens. Prayer becomes conversation, faith becomes relationship, and obedience becomes an expression of love rather than obligation. At the end of the day, true life change is not about becoming a better version of ourselves. It is about becoming who God created us to be. That transformation cannot be achieved by human strength alone. It requires daily surrender, quiet, consistent, and sincere. When you choose surrender each morning, you may not see immediate results, but heaven sees your faithfulness. God honors surrendered hearts, and in time, that surrender produces peace, strength, and a life changed from the inside out.